All right, so today we are going to kind of pick up where we left off on Thursday night. And Thursday night I was kind of talking about, what this year has been, kind of like a recap of kind of what we've been through and really how we're going to be able to make it out of this year and not have these reoccurring patterns continue to show up. Like I said on Thursday night, thousands and thousands of years of timelines are being eliminated in this life, whether you're actively working on it or not. I mean, just you showing up and opening a door for someone that you possibly could have killed in the 16th century is rebalancing karma. So we're doing it regardless if we're really conscious or not, but there's certain going to be places that you're going to be pushed into to clear. And we've all seen that. Pushed into your relationship patterns, pushed into your abundance patterns, pushed into your time, space patterns. Because here's the thing, as a soul, there is no time and space. So believe it or not, we all have wounds on time and space. Losing your childhood home, not having the time to do the things that you want. Believe it or not, there's traumas inside of time and space. Having to operate in the confines of 3D dimension is extremely traumatic. Would you agree? Yes. So, we've got relationships, which are all doozies for us. And if you've noticed that 2017 has really tested you when it comes to relationships, or lack of relationships, or the relationship that you're having with yourself. And because 2017 is the year of the integrating of the second phase of awakening, which is the heart chakra, the fastest way for us to heal our heart chakra is through relationships. Because here's the thing, is we can look at time and space, and we can devalue it how it has anything to do with a relationship. We can devalue money when it comes to the relationship of us and money. And we have all devalued our own health. But relationships constantly get our attention, don't they? And they are what is helping us open up and heal the heart chakra so much faster, okay? And what I got big time, especially since Second Sunday, is really about like the state of the world being at its ultimate positivity, yet circumstantially it looks the worst. I mean, really, we have shifted paradigms of empathy and compassion and knowledge and awareness and questioning and curiosity in 1 year. That, more of that has happened in 1 year than in lifetimes. So if we can look at it that way and not look at the hurricanes and the floods and the riots and the shootings and the politics and the sicknesses and the suicides, and again, I had a very fascinating healing session this morning, and it was perfectly aligned with this class. It was a woman who came to me a couple of weeks ago. She's not metaphysical. She has no understanding of quantum mechanics, quantum theory. No idea what NLP is. No idea what law of attraction is. No idea what any of it is. But somehow landed in my schedule, so I knew it was going to be perfect. And my first conversation with her, she was very angry. And she began to tell me her story. And her story kind of went like this. A lifetime of kind of mental instability. Parents were both bipolar. Married an alcoholic. 2.5 years ago, lost her child to a suicide. Chronic eating issues, insomnia, full body shutdown. Yet has a very, 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 very strong belief that holistics is the only way she's actually going to be able to heal anything, which is probably how she ended up on my calendar. Because she does understand that her body is too sensitive for pharmaceuticals. So she began to yell at me because she was on Razapam and telling me how much she was upset with her husband, that her husband made her go on this Razapam 3 times a day. And I just said, well, is it helping you? And she was like, well, yeah, but that's not the point. So anyways, 3 sessions later, this morning I had a session with her and her husband. Because her husband has seen her physically continue to destroy herself by seeking answers. She did a breathwork class about 1.5 years ago that was very expensive, where they basically eliminated food. It was a deep, deep, deep shamanic journey through basically contracted and restricted breath. Okay? And she did this for 18 months and almost died. She lost 60 pounds, which she was already a thin woman. She was skin and bones. They were telling her that pharmaceuticals were the devil. They were telling her that the breath would save her life. Now, all of these things are true, aren't they? From our 5D ears. But a woman who has had a nervous system that's basically been blown out since birth, right? Chronic fight or flight, which means no knowledge of self. When you are in fight or flight, you don't know yourself. You are in primal survival. You can't reason. There's not compassion for you. There is no knowledge of yourself. There is no reason. There is only survive. And your body very, very quickly, if you've been in fight or flight before, starts to become the enemy, doesn't it? Because all of a sudden now I'm not digesting my food. And I'm sick all the time. And I have headaches. And I'm not sleeping. And now I'm mad at myself. And so the conversation that I had with her and her husband this morning went something like this. I said, let me just tell you what Helen's been through for her life. Let me tell you the story from a scientific perspective, not a woo-woo, metaphysical, new age, spiritual guru perspective. Let me just share Helen's body journey with you. And I began to explain to him what I've told you guys a million times, the story of, why zebras don't get ulcers. And why have you heard of this story?
What?
Why zebras don't get ulcers. You've heard this story, yes?
No.
I'll tell it just briefly because I know you've heard it 1,000 times from me. But it is the best way to explain someone who doesn't understand the nervous system. So think about it. What color is a zebra? Black and white. What color is nature? Not black and white. Okay? Bottom of the food chain. Big like a horse. Right? Easy to find and attack. Yet do you know that they do not remain in chronic fight or flight? They do not remain in survival. Unless they're provoked and unless something happens. Which means that, the zebra is doing a zebra thing, whatever the zebras do, and just being a zebra. And then all of a sudden, they feel the danger, the body reacts, the lion comes towards them, their body moves into the natural state of fight or flight. They get all of that extra adrenaline, all of the energy that was used to digest their food and, dictate the rhythms of their body shut down, and all of that energy goes into the appendages so that they become slippery and they can move very quickly. Okay? As soon as they outrun the lion, let's hope they do, right? Immediately, they switch back into the other side of the nervous system and they become the zebra again. They do the zebra stuff, they drink the zebra water, they do all of the things that whatever zebras do. They're not judging the lion. They're not going, what a jerk. They just came out of nowhere. Why is he picking on me? They don't have those thoughts. So they don't stay in fight or flight. They also don't worry about whether the lion's going to come back. They just know that the lion's going to come back, and they know the lion's going to come back, and when the lion comes back, their body will know exactly what to do. But they're not anticipating the lion coming back. Now think about your life. Constant anticipation of worry and judgment and why things have happened or how things could happen. Okay? So now you take that zebra out of its natural habitat and you put that zebra into the zoo. And the zebra is now on a concrete floor that it doesn't recognize or feel safe on. It's on synthetic grass or not the right type of grass for its natural habitat. There's no predators except when am I going to eat, how am I going to eat, and what's happening. And so they start to anticipate survival. And as soon as they start to anticipate survival, they actually develop psychological issues in the zoo. So zebras actually can get ulcers in a zoo. And if you look at that, that's just nervous system 101. Now, I was telling her husband this exact story this morning. And he's like, we have sat with 15 doctors and nobody has explained it that simply to me. And I said, because the doctors are not looking at your nervous system. They're looking at her digestion. They're looking at her headaches. They're looking at her insomnia. They're looking at her bipolar disorder, and they're not understanding that it's all connected to the nervous system. And the nervous system is the brain's tail, and the brain's tail is the conductor, it's the receiver, it's the perceiver, it's the stimulation point, and the nervous system is the channel. So what channel is the body in? Okay? Now, because of the way that we mentalize everything, there is a part of your subconscious that is still in anticipation for the trauma that you received when you were 6 years old. See, anticipation is the best way to understand PTSD. Your body is staying in a constant state of anticipation. Now, what is anticipation? It's a belief that something could happen. See the word belief? What creates your reality? Belief. So if I am a positive person that has worked on my stuff, and I meditate, and I do good for the world, and I go to my job, and I take care of my kids, but if there is 1% of me that is anticipation of trauma, that's going to still be active in my timeline. Law of attraction is still going to be responding to that 1% like it's 100%. Because in the subconscious, how many anticipations do you have running? Think about it. Think about your narcissistic mother, or your unavailable father, or the priest that touched your naughty parts. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like when you look at that and you think that you have grown up past those things, there's a part of you that is anticipating, if I was treated like this once, then it's going to happen again, and I need to stay waiting. I need to stay in the anticipation of. And if you have an anticipation frequency running at your subconscious level, you will attract that pattern over and over and over again because you believe that it could happen again. Okay, so when we're looking at the year that we just had, right? And we're looking about our childhoods, and we're looking at all the time travel that we've done, and we're looking at all the health that we've done. Basically, the session that I had with this husband and wife this morning was I needed him to see his wife differently so that I can work with her to see herself differently. That is my whole healing journey with the two of these people that I met today. You see how I didn't say, well, I'm going to heal them? I'm not going to teach them time travel. Is I just need them to stop anticipating the past. So my diagnosis for Helen this morning was to heal her nervous system. And you see how that's not metaphysical? Do you see how that's not spiritual? But do you see how that is completely spiritual? Do you see how that is completely metaphysical? Because the nervous system is the universal phone line between dimensional understanding. And the last part of our session, they got into this big discussion of Al-Anon. Anybody familiar with Al-Anon? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Al-Anon is a support group for people who have survived abuse through alcoholism or drugs. So it's almost like the other side of that. You know, AA is for the drug addict, Al-Anon is for the person who watched it. Okay? And it has kind of become her church. And her husband was worried because she spends so much time in Al-Anon. And so I gave him the understanding of what a security blanket is. We all, in TICA, understand the value of the security blanket, whether it's smoking, Al-Anon, your favorite food, you know, your ability to vent to that one friend that's not going to judge you. We all have those security blankets. And from the outside, someone could judge our security blanket, couldn't they? Because they don't understand how it's helping us cope with our anticipation. You see how your security blankets are just helping you cope with your anticipation. And there is nothing wrong with that. And so what I showed him is that as her body begins to heal, and as her nervous system begins to heal, the things that she talks about at Al-Anon will change, won't they? Because she won't be sharing her story. She will be empowering through her story, won't she? Because anyone with a healed nervous system is connected to higher self. And you won't share pain. You'll share pain through purpose, won't you? So instead, I was showing him that when her body starts feeling well, she won't be so mad at God. And if she's not mad at God, she won't be telling that story of trauma. She'll be telling the story of how she survived it. And she'll be showing everyone how she did it. And they were both in tears. And this was a very non-spiritual conversation that we were having about how the higher power is actually received and delivered to you through the gift of your nervous system. And your nervous system is your ticket out of this year. And has nothing to do with 5D, but it's all 5D. So your nervous system is what we need to heal. And as we go through today, I really want you guys to get back together and start doing time travel and doing your healing modalities and working on your nervous system. Erin has been teaching classes because each component that we're all teaching here, whether it's Amber's self-love class, right, or it's Erin's class about eating, it's all based in the nervous system, isn't it? Because again, what throws the nervous system out of balance? Anticipation. We are in a chronic state of anticipation, which means that we are in a chronic state of fight or flight. And if we are in a chronic state of fight or flight, there is no God to the mind. There is only survive. There is only conquer. There is only consume. There is only protect. There is no build. There's no creativity. There's no knowing. There's no solutions. There's just problems. And as long as there's anticipation in the energy field of the timeline, you will always be in a chronic state of waiting. Waiting for the shoe to drop. Waiting for the rug to be pulled out from underneath you. Waiting for your heart to get broken again. Waiting for your mom and dad to leave again, but yet mom and dad now are in the shape of your boss or your home. Waiting for your safety to go away, because that's what you saw over and over and over again. And any anticipation is a form of PTSD if it is in the negative side of the spectrum. Okay? Is this making sense? So working with Irene has been amazing, because if you guys all tuned into her class where she did the EFT, and the purpose of EFT is, I don't need to reteach her class, but it is basically, it's that emotional freedom technique of allowing that emotion that's been trapped in you. Because what keeps you in anticipation? Blocked emotion, right? Blocked anger, blocked charge, blocked grief, blocked sadness, blocked whatever. So as she's teaching you guys how to release that, and she's using very special points on your body that are associated with different organs, what I want to do with her is I want to take it one step more and go quantum. Because yes, we love letting go of the charge in the organ tissue, because anger is stored in the liver, right? Your belief in God is stored in the kidneys. Whether you think the universe is there to protect you or not is actually stored in your kidneys. If God's not showing up for you, you'll have kidney stuff going on. Okay? Because that's your chi. That's your life force energy. That's the prana. Okay? So, let's look at what the gallbladder represents. We can look at all of these different organs, but we can associate it, or we can just go right to the root, and the root is your chakra system, and your chakra system is your nervous system. Hands down. So what I was asking her in this little conversation that we had this week when we were trying to work how we can put time travel and EFT together, I said there's a missing component, and that's kinesiology. So what we're going to do is we're going to blend time travel, kinesiology, and EFT. And we're going to do it through intuitive tapping and holding space for the body while it's going through different release points. Okay? And I actually did it just because, again, life shows up and you, as a healer, you just show up with it. So I was in this session the other day, and I said, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's just go for it. I'm going to just run through it. I'm going to see what shows up. And I'm going to play around with the enough knowledge of EFT that I have intuitively, the understanding of kinesiology, and the time travel prospect of being able to move back and forth on the timelines to go to the trauma points of anticipation. You also develop anticipation really quickly, not to get off, but from watching things happen. Or watching things almost happen. Do you know that those are bigger trauma points for you because you witnessed it through empathy? Watching someone else get molested is technically worse than having it happen yourself. Right? It's like thinking about cleaning your room versus cleaning your room. Right? Watching something happen from a place of not having any way to help is the worst trauma you will ever receive. Because the body was designed to heal. So the body doesn't get all butthurt from abuse. The mind does. How could someone who loved me hurt me? That's why the zebra doesn't have psychological issues, because he's not going, why is that lion attacking me? There's a bird he could eat. But I'm going, why would the person who say they love me the most be hurting me right now? That is the PTSD, not the abuse. The body's like, oh dang, we hit the wall. 1,000 million cells just died, and now we're going to rebirth. There is no trauma associated with physical pain without a mental component of why. Why is this happening? Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. So when I'm saying last Thursday night, you need to go into the feeling. The feeling is going to hold the anticipation. Okay? So the time travel that I took a gal through, basically what we did was, I asked her to take me back to the feeling. And she kept saying, I can't remember my childhood, I can't remember my childhood. And if you've done time travel, you know you don't need to. Because we're going to find a feeling. And the feeling is not going to logic, meaning you're not going to, it's not going to make sense why you go in the places that you go, but that's where the energy and charge is actually contained. So, and I'm not going to do like an in-depth, like really rooted. Okay. I want, this is just for teaching purposes.
I want to be next to you.
But
My chair doesn't want to.
Your chair is moving. The gravitational flow is moving.
Nice.
But what I want you to, so let me start with saying first and foremost, when I'm teaching you guys time travel, what I'm doing is I'm reminding you of how you are a healer. Which means that there are a couple rules when it comes to time travel, and that's it. Obviously. The first rule of time travel is never, ever lead someone into a place they don't want to go. That's your ego. You may be super intuitive and all of a sudden the mom pops up and you see that the mom is the root of all of the pain, and you're going to start pushing mom. And their vibration is saying, I can't, mom's not safe yet. I need to go to my first grade teacher first. I need to go to dad first. I need to go somewhere else. So no matter how intuitive you feel you are, and you may be looking at the root, your job is to allow your client, student, friend to go where they need to go, because it is, healing is in layers of baby steps. Just because you can see the bottom of the onion does not mean you get to go there right now, right? You have to go very gently with what is showing up in the now moment. I've seen my students make this mistake, and I will bust your chops if I hear you leading. Go to mom. Make mom different. Make mom show up better. I'm sorry. Mom is not safe. Mom will never be safe to my inner child. We are not going to make mom into something that you think I need to make mom into so that you feel better. Because you have to remember that unless you are in total state of higher being, you are still going to channel your ego in your sessions. And this takes practice. You actually have to not care what shows up to not be in your ego in your sessions, which means that you can't go, I really hope we have a good session and they cry or they heal. Because then, if they don't, then I will look bad. That is the worst possible thing that you could do. You're there to hold space. And when you hold space, they heal themselves. So do not lead, ever. Do not push. I don't care what you see. Don't bring it up. If they don't see it, they're not ready to see it. You are there to help them hold space. And time needs to be not important to you, how long that takes. Which means we're going to start and we're going to do exactly what shows up in the moment, and that's all we're going to do. Okay? So, when we're working with Kara, you're going to watch me not lead her. You're going to watch me just hold space and guide from my higher self and her higher self things that will help her become more aware of her anticipation. Yes? Okay. The only other rule of time travel is that there are no rules. That's it. There's only two rules. Which means that when you start to understand how you naturally hold space, you'll be doing this probably completely differently than I do, and that's okay. This isn't like trademark. This is quantum, and quantum means all, which means that you have knowledge inside of you that I couldn't even begin to access. And I want you to bring that forth in your healing. I want you to be the genius that I can't be. I want this to be just the tiniest little bullet points for you to be able to build your healing modalities. And the only thing you ever have to know is that you're not leading and there are no rules. What shows up, what shows up. You know, you could start seeing the color blue around them. Don't say, I see the color blue. That's your healing journey. Say, what do you think about the color blue? See the difference between leading and observing? Okay? And again, if any of you guys are trained quantum healing hypnosis specialists under Dolores Cannon, that is her #1 rule too, is do not lead. Because you're seeing their reality through your quantum timeline, which means it's always going to be altered what you see versus what's actually happening. That means anytime I see your timeline, you guys, it's not completely accurate. It's filtered through my quantum perspective. Now, if I can get as neutral and neutral and neutral as possible, ours will be close, but it will still be the observer that sees and perceives. It's still going to be my consciousness perceiving your timeline. So I will never even be 100% accurate, nor will any healer or teacher or guide. Make sense? Okay, because again, when we were talking last Thursday about epigenetics, let me ask Erin a question. So Erin, when you go and notice that your body language shifts when you're around certain people, places, and things, okay, and you're becoming very aware of how that's happening, which means that your character is literally shape-shifting, who is actually changing? Is it the person that's changing, or is it you that's changing?
I'm changing.
Good. So what happens is we get around mom, and we think mom hasn't changed. But in that moment, we have completely changed into the observer who sees mom from an 8-year-old perspective. So it is the observer that changes their perspective. You know, if Bill and I fall madly in love, right? Okay, just saying, could happen. It's quantum.
Totally.
And then 2 weeks later, like, I want to punch his lights out, he will change because of me, not because of him. It's impossible because I'm the quantum observer. So his particles are doing what his particles do until I observe them. And if I observe them from a different perspective, then he will change to me. But he's not actually changing. And vice versa. You see how that works? So in time travel, it's really about changing the observer than it is about changing anything else. I'm just going to get her to see herself differently and change her anticipation points, because anticipation is the marker of time and space, and it holds. Well, I can't go build my own business because, you know, in 1983 I failed. I'm holding anticipation. You see that? Okay, so